Tonight, we're learning more about the triple stabbing at a North York high school that left a young man dead.
I already knew there was going to be a fight because there was just way too many people around.
The victim just 15 years old. The school bringing in supports today to help students cope. Plus,
I wouldn't maybe want to put something into my son that's fairly new.
As the city prepares to vaccinate children aged 5 to 11, how do parents feel about it? The survey results are in, and
we have volunteers in Ontario who are ready to step up and support.
How people in the GTA are helping as British Columbia declares a state of emergency amid devastating floods and landslides. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Police have charged a 19-year-old in a stabbing that left a 15-year-old, Maher Dosani, dead. Now, 2 others were also injured and have since been released from hospital. All 3 were students at Victoria Park Collegiate, where the stabbing happened. Tonight, we're learning more about the events leading up to Dosani's death and the impact it's having on the school. Dale Manukduk has more.
15-year-old Maher Dosani was killed yesterday, his death sending shockwaves through the community.
I just don't feel safe. I kind of I don't feel safe anymore here.
That's the feeling from one grade 9 student at Victoria Park Collegiate. Just after 3 yesterday afternoon, police responded to a stabbing at the North York school.
I already knew there was going to be a fight because there was just way too many people around.
I've also heard, though, that it sort of escalated very quickly.
When police arrived, they found Maher Dosani suffering from stab wounds to the torso. He was transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead. Supports were brought in today for staff and students and will remain available for as long as needed.
There were a lot of kids that watched, there were staff that helped, so all of them want to be together today. All of them need the support that we're going to provide today.
Dosani was an active member of the Ismaili Muslim community.
Maher was a conscientious student who was respectful and engaged in class. We know that Maher attended school on a regular basis and participated fully in the classes here at Victoria Park.
2 other boys, a 14-year-old and 16-year-old, were both taken to hospital but have since been released. Police are asking that anybody with information or video come forward. Several students today alluded to video they'd seen.
And then you can't really see. You can see a figure.
In the video I've seen of this, some people are still laughing because they think it's funny almost.
The 19-year-old charged with second-degree murder appeared in court today. Ahmed Rafin is due in court again next week. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
And there has been another fatal shooting in the city. A man in his 20s is dead after a drive-by shooting at an apartment complex in Scarborough. Greg Ross spoke with neighbors, including one man who saw the victim right outside his window.
Gunshots echoed through this apartment complex at around 10 o'clock last night.
Shocked. I was shocked.
Makes you afraid, to not even go outside. You're not safe. You don't feel safe.
I knew right away. This man was particularly shaken. It happened right outside his front window.
Rushed to the window. The young man was laying right here.
He saw the victim, a man in his 20s, just moments after being shot, and he noticed 2 bullet holes in his kitchen window.
Fortunately, no one was in the kitchen, so we had 2 stray bullets in the kitchen.
Today, he says he's already considering finding a new place to live.
How are you feeling right now after that?
We just want to get out of here as soon as we can.
You want to move?
That's it. We want to go anywhere, but we want to get out of here.
Several residents tell me that shortly after hearing gunshots last night, they came out to find the man laying here at the front door of this low-rise apartment building. When paramedics arrived, they attempted to revive him. He was eventually pronounced dead on scene.
The shooting happened just hours after this announcement by the Premier yesterday.
We will spare no expense to ensure our brave women and men in uniform have everything they need to wage this battle against gun and gang activity. That's why today I'm announcing a further investment of over $75 million over 3 years to combat crime.
Today, the mayor admitting that with gun violence on the rise in Toronto, the city welcomes all the help it can get.
These are all positive steps forward, and I spoke with the police chief this morning, and he indicated that not only are these things going to be helpful to Toronto in terms of fighting gang violence and gun violence and stopping the kinds of deaths that we have seen.
Witnesses say a grey car was seen fleeing the scene. At this point, police have not released any information about possible suspects, and they have not released the victim's identity. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The Toronto District School Board teacher who went to school wearing blackface no longer has a job with the board. Now, the incident took place late last month at Parkdale Collegiate during Halloween celebrations. Students who were in the class asked the teacher what his costume was. The teacher apparently became defensive and said it looked cool. In the days that followed, students protested at the school and the teacher was placed on home assignment. The TDSB sent a letter home to parents today saying he is no longer employed by the board. Canadian travelers will no longer have to take a molecular COVID-19 test when returning from a trip lasting 3 days or less. Now, that is according to sources who say the federal government will soon announce it's dropping that requirement. The PCR test will still be required for Canadians who have been outside the country for more than 72 hours. It will also be required for Americans or others coming to Canada as well. And Canadians will still have to get the antigen test when returning from trips abroad. Health Canada is expected to approve a vaccine for those under 12 in the coming days. As the City of Toronto prepares to vaccinate younger children, it's reminding parents who are hesitant that the vaccine is safe. Lisa Shing has more.
In Islington City Centre West, an area of Etobicoke, vaccinations are on the minds of parents with young children. It's one of 30 priority neighbourhoods identified by the city that will be part of the first phase of the rollout for children's ages 5 to 11.
I'm really excited for the kids to get vaccinated. I'm excited for them to get the protection that I have and my husband has, and for them to feel a little bit safer at school.
Others aren't so sure about their kids getting the jab.
I wouldn't maybe want to put something into my son that's fairly new, you know? Maybe I'd want to wait it out just a little bit more, you know?
The chances of them being seriously affected by the COVID are so low that the effects of the vaccine on its own might be worse.
In an online survey, the city found 66% of parents were certain or somewhat likely to have their kids vaccinated.
That is a good start. It does show that we have work to do.
And Toronto's medical officer of health had this to say to parents who weren't sure.
Vaccines do not impact fertility. They do not impact genetic material or DNA, and they do not impact hormone levels. It's the best protection for them, for their friends and their families, and for our community.
Kids in those 30 neighborhoods, including here in Etobicoke, will have access to more than 200 mobile clinics located in schools, hospitals, and in the community. There are also partnerships with pharmacies and doctors' offices across the city. Toronto has already started its campaign to get families on board, since Ottawa could give the go-ahead in the next couple of weeks. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Peel Region's top doctor gave an update on their vaccination rates today.
At present, 89.2% of eligible residents in the region of Peel have had 1 dose of vaccine, and 85.2% have had 2 doses. There are just over 80,000 doses remaining for us to reach 90% 2-dose coverage. That consists of, we need 12,000 people to come forward for their first dose and 70,000 to come forward for their second dose whenever they come eligible.
Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown revealing there are just 2 patients in ICU at Brampton Civic Hospital, saying that's a testament to the region's high vaccination rate. This comes as the city prepares to get more hospital beds with the expansion of Peel Memorial, but it's still unclear when a new emergency room will be ready. And residents may be charged a tax levy for the municipal share. Still, the mayor says he's happy with what's planned for his city now.
Listen, we're getting $1 billion from the provincial government. You know, how could I be anything but elated with $1 billion when we haven't had a penny from the provincial government on healthcare in 15 years? And so for me, it's good news.
A hospital spokesperson says first in construction will be 250 inpatient beds with another 100 added over time. Over to the world of baseball now. Toronto Blue Jays starter Robbie Ray has become the 5th pitcher to win the American League Cy Young Award, hours after officially becoming a free agent. Now, Ray had a 13-7 record for the Jays with a 2.84 earned run average. The 30-year-old declined an $18.4 million U.S. qualifying offer made by the Jays last week. Now, Ray's decision was expected as he is poised to be one of the most sought-after players in free agency. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with the first look at the forecast. And Colette, definitely milder today, but we needed our umbrellas.
Yeah, that's just it. We reached that daytime high, but in the evening hours, once the sun was down, and of course, what sun? Because of all the rain showers. And, we're still seeing this kind of activity into the overnight at times, and in a few areas where it's a little more organized and more like periods of rain. But otherwise, we have a lot of areas just experiencing kind of drizzle. So that carries on overnight tonight, clearing out in the early morning. So the morning commute for most folks will be drier. If you're out there at like 6 a.m. in the GTA, then you may experience some wet roadways, and anywhere from about Hamilton around to St. Catharines, it does linger longer there through the morning commute. Our temperatures will actually be falling as we go through the day tomorrow, so into the afternoon getting cooler and breezy conditions with those winds from the southwest, west to southwest. And then tomorrow night we get into that risk of seeing some lake effects. So there the rain's going by, that's in the midnight hour and just past, and then at 7 a.m. you can see how it's really kind of pulling away once those winds come across Lake Huron. That's when we start to see some of those wet flurries developing again. Tonight, 7 degrees. Tomorrow, 5. But then, yeah, it's going to be feeling much cooler than that as those winds kick in, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. As efforts continue in British Columbia in wake of devastating flooding and mudslides, people here in the GTA are trying to help. Volunteers say they're dealing with more extreme weather events in recent years, and experts say changing how we manage climate change needs to evolve. Our Jessica Ng brings us this story tonight.
Devastating flooding and mudslides in British Columbia are wreaking havoc for residents. It's caused port and highway closures in parts of the province, which has declared a state of emergency. The disaster leaving thousands, like Jordan Youngema, stranded.
Did as many breathing techniques as I could. I knew I was trapped. I couldn't see any lights on the roads. The water was up to my window, like 7 feet from the ground.
In Toronto, volunteers with Global Medic are eager to help. The team assembled over 400 cleanup kits today, which are being flown to BC to help with local efforts.
I think we're all caught a little bit off guard by the speed of the flooding, but I think it just shows that, we need to be prepared.
That's a message echoed by Guy Lepage of the Canadian Red Cross.
You can watch disasters far away and say, well, that's happening over there. I don't need to worry about it. Well, the BC floods just is a ton of rain in a very short amount of time. That can happen here.
Lepage has volunteered with the organization for 16 years and says he has noticed an uptick in the number of extreme weather events. Experts agree climate change will continue to make matters worse.
If you add on climate change, that's more or less the equivalent of injecting steroids into the Canadian climate.
The Associate Professor of Environment says the proof is being experienced in BC right now. As the atmosphere warms up, it's able to hold more moisture year-round. That means the potential for more rain. And then add on another effect of climate change.
A lot of the water that would normally be captured and held back by forests and trees along the hillsides in these river valleys have been burned from wildfires. So a lot of their natural water retention capacity has been eroded.
Thistlethwaite says successive federal and provincial governments have failed to invest enough in climate adaptation strategies to make sure we can weather extreme events ahead of time. He says building more flood defenses around infrastructure and ensuring new builds have those measures in mind will go a long way to adapting to the realities of climate change. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. CBC News was the first to report on the Ford government's hopes for building electric vehicles in Ontario. Now the Premier is revealing more of his plans and a target. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has this story.
Premier Doug Ford gets a tour at auto parts maker Linamar as he launches a new phase of Ontario's auto sector strategy.
This phase aims to keep the province's manufacturing at the forefront of an increasingly competitive global arena.
that global competition, wooing automakers to build electric vehicles. Ontario's strategy involves partnering with automakers on investments to retool their old assembly lines and creating an EV battery assembly plant in the province.
We have the greatest manufacturing workforce anywhere on the planet, ready to put those cars together and get them out on the road.
Ford's target for Ontario to be building 400,000 electric vehicles a year by 2030.
I think the Ontario targets are realistic. They're a bit of a stretch, but doable if the industry works together with the province.
Still, there are questions about the strategy. Why isn't Ontario doing anything to spur electric vehicle sales? Ford's government scrapped all rebates shortly after taking office.
Nothing against Tesla, they're gorgeous cars. But, you know, I just didn't believe in it. Let's see how the market dictates.
And how will Ontario compete against the lavish investments in electric vehicles coming from the Biden administration in the U.S.?
Ontario is just now coming out with a strategy. This is exactly why the Ontario Greens have been calling for an EV strategy for years now, and Ford's dithering and delays is hurting our economy.
An electric vehicle strategy requires more than just manufacturing batteries. We need the charging stations, we need the rebate.
The strategy announced today also involves plans to train more auto workers. At this plant, the company is so desperate for skilled staff, they're offering a $1,500 hiring bonus. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, cloudy tonight with light rain continuing overnight. Temperatures tonight unseasonably warm, currently 15 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, today's mild weather won't be lasting. We can expect temperatures to cool off tomorrow.
Yeah, it was always going to be this one-day only event, Kelda. And the thing is just, you know, it's kind of almost like a waste when you have with a day that's been gray and wet and we don't even reach those highs until we get into the evening hours. Nonetheless, milder conditions, some wet conditions too, some of that heavier rain back towards Lake Huron. And then we're going to find that even tomorrow morning, some of it a little heavier around the Niagara region. So your morning commute likely to be wet, whereas elsewhere we will be drying out and it's more just some drizzle that will be sticking around, depending how early you are out there on the roads. Then we'll get some partial clearing, so getting some sunny breaks, but notice what else is happening. Those winds are going to be strong tomorrow, quite gusty from the west, and along with that, that's going to provide some lake effect snows, and some of those flurries will make their way Thursday night into Friday, right on into the city. So wet in nature, a little bit mixed, but still that's what's going to be there. And then we will mostly beyond that be seeing some sunnier skies as those winds calm down into Friday. So in terms of the rainfall amounts, it's more significant, like I said, kind of west and northwest of the city and also towards the Niagara region. You may see more than that into St. Catharines and even Hamilton in terms of what's left here that still has to work its way through tonight and early tomorrow. And then those winds west to southwesterly, some of those gusts will be not just at 50 kilometers an hour, in a few cases exceeding that. And again, it's coming down through Burlington. Watch out on the Burlington Skyway if you'll be traveling that. It can be a little bit difficult, even especially with some of those higher profile vehicles. Now, tonight, here's what we have for you in southwestern Ontario. And notice something, that's overnight. And then tomorrow, look at those temperatures. Yeah, they'll be falling. We'll be lucky to hold at that 3 degrees into the afternoon hours. Windsor as that colder air filters in behind the cold front. Tonight, your readings all around the Golden Horseshoe, including 8 in St. Catharines, will hold warmer into the overnight, much of it. It's not till tomorrow morning we'll reach those temperatures. And then also through this region, we will eventually see those temperatures falling through the afternoon hours. So you may not feel like you need a jacket early in the day when you're heading out. You're going to need it for coming home. And then a look at what happens after that with those flurries Friday, then we'll clear out, but cooler temperatures in place, so cooler overnights. And yes, Saturday starting off from -1, so a chillier start to the weekend, Kelda.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, remembering a Toronto legend in the film and TV industry. Bob Schultz died last month. Talia Ricci has more on his incredible legacy.
Show me your commercials and I tell you who you are.
Loyalty, family, and fun. Those are some of the things friends and family say were most important to Bob Schultz. Schultz was a force in the film and TV industry. behind some of the biggest advertising campaigns of the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Bob Schultz was my uncle. He didn't have any kids, so he was very much like a second father for me. He introduced me to everything in film and entertainment, and I'm a director of photography right now.
I just kind of stole it from his apartment. I hope he doesn't mind. It's going on the red carpet on Thursday night.
I was like his daughter, and I was his casting director for 30-something years, as well as props, wardrobe, his everything.
Most of the memory is sitting with him late at night on the old machines where you've got the film, and you're splicing.
Those who worked alongside him say he had a way of bringing people together and also putting them to work.
He yells from up there, "Cut!" I'm like, okay, my heart jumped out of I didn't know what. I look up, he said, "Those pigeons, could you get rid of the gray ones?" How do you do that? But she's like, "Okay, Bob, give me a minute."
Okay, are we ready?
Working for him, if he wanted those pigeons gone, you had to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. We had almost every department store in the States at one time. We were literally flying everywhere and doing a year's worth of shoots at one time. And that was really where Bob Schultz was really magical, because he could get it done.
Man, whenever I start to do a commercial, somebody has to do it. But if I have to interrupt somebody at home, I like to do it the least offending way.
Schultz immigrated to Canada from Hungary in the 50s, bringing his culture and his work ethic with him. Those who knew him say his legacy will continue through many people he influenced in Toronto and around the world.
And help me mold the person I am today. So my story is adjacent to, I think, a few hundred other people's stories who were close to him.
He wanted his 90th birthday celebrated Hollywood style, with big lights and a red carpet. Loved ones say the show must go on.
The only thing missing for me on Thursday night would be him, because that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
I think usually the greater the people are, the more they reach for perfection, and they are dissatisfied with anything less. This is high professionalism, and this goes for our business too.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.